What's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today is going to be a little bit of a different type of video, just getting a little bit of perspective on the current sealed wax box UFC market, kind of my takeaways from the announcement by Dana White for UFC moving forward with Paramount, just to get an idea of where we're at and what I'm thinking long term with sealed boxes and UFC in particular. So right now I'm in South Carolina visiting my parents, so a little bit different format of a video today. But yeah, just to kind of think this over, I was reading some of the reactions last night of what people's thoughts were on the card, and then some of the other things moving forward. And that the response on the card was, I would say, 70% positive, 30% negative, which is about to be expected. Most people were happy with the fights. Patty, Gaethje, Nunes, Harrison. I was a big fan of the Umar fight that they announced. But overall, good card. The biggest positive reaction I saw was overall that, at least the ones that I paid attention to that I could get access to, because there's a lot of private groups and private discords and all that stuff, but the move to the 9 p.m. time slot seemed to be the biggest home run move that people were the happiest about. So in the past, the slots would, for the main event, would be at 10 p.m. and now they move it at 1 hour earlier for 9 p.m., which the East Coast people were freaking out about and happy and jumping up and down and going wild. So that was a good move. So yeah, I guess the way they did it in the announcement, people were pretty happy. But how does that impact sealed boxes moving forward? And how do I look at UFC sealed? So a couple points I want to hit on. So like the Black Friday sales for UFC sealed products sucked. I didn't see one sale that really caught my eye overall. A lot of Topps Chrome in general, but that product's everywhere. And if you wait and you're patient enough, you can get that cheap enough. You could probably get that for $240 a box, $230 a box if you're lucky. But looking at the older product and some of the opportunities there, you really have to think, like, why do people want sealed product in the first place, right? Like, why do we even care about this stuff? Why do I care about it? What do I see in UFC sealed product that's opportunity? And why is sealed product even valuable, right? So, it comes down to a couple things. So you look at, like, the scarcity of the boxes. Not that scarcity is everything. Without demand, scarcity doesn't matter. Simple economics curve there. Scarcity and demand that we all learn in elementary school or middle school, hopefully. So like the scarcity is there, which I like. Demand for vintage UFC is, I would say, hit or miss at this point. The prices are up there on some of the older boxes without a doubt, but there's not a lot of competition pushing the price up. I know I've been buying vintage UFC sealed pretty much, but I don't get the impression I'm competing with a lot of other people. But to be fair, I'm mostly buying my vintage sealed UFC from websites directly. You don't see much pop up on eBay or Fanatics or Golden Auctions or Heritage Auctions, especially in an auction format, and that's important. When you have something priced to buy it now and it sits there and it doesn't sell, there's a couple ways you can look at that. You can look at it as, oh, nobody's interested, nobody's buying it. Or maybe there's other people looking at the price and they are interested, but they don't want to be the one to buy it for that price because the price is set by the website. Psychologically, and this is kind of like a weird thing, like they think it's not a deal. So if I have a 2013 knockout box sealed, and it's on a website for $3,500 and it sits there for a day, a week, and I look at it and I see it's still there, I think, oh, nobody's interested, nobody wants to buy it, I'm going to wait till it's $3,000 or it's going to wait till it's $2,800. And I'm not really a fan of that mentality sometimes, because if you think of it that way and you wait till something goes down, chances are when it goes down, you're probably not going to buy it either. Because then you're going to trick yourself in your head that, oh, it was $3,500, now it's $3,000, it's going down in price, and what if it goes to 28 or 27? Like, I want to get the lowest price possible. And I think that's a failing way to look at investing in something long term. If you believe in it, you believe in it. You do your research, you do your homework, you make sure you don't go into debt, you make sure you have the proper amount of money set aside, and you do what you got to do. Because like the other way to look at it is that if a website has 2 or 3 boxes of 2013 knockout, and I just keep picking on that because that's probably, one of the most desirable boxes, or 2013 bloodlines, I'm sorry, products in UFC, at least price wise. If I buy out the website at $3,500, there's none in stock, and then you can't find anywhere on the internet for a month or two, and then I price mine and throw it up at $6,000, I doubt it'll sell. But people will see that price and they'll remember, oh, he was asking $6,000, and now you just reset the whole psychological aspect of the pricing and the market and what people see, and that creates an anchor in their head. And that old $3,500 anchor only matters to the people that saw it. But if you didn't buy it and now you see it at $6,000, you're probably gonna have a little bit of buyer's remorse, whether it's worth $6,000 or not. Like the way that we price things and the way we look at value and assign that value to sealed boxes is kind of interesting. So kind of going back to where we started, we talked about scarcity. Price point's a big one. The good thing with UFC is that there are no boxes that are $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 like there are in other sports. I mean, there are vintage sealed boxes in baseball that are $250,000, $500,000, even $1 million. What does that mean for UFC and how does that correlate? There's probably not much correlation there. I mean, the oldest licensed UFC product is 2009, which is 2009 round 1 UFC. Those go for about $3,000 a box. Whenever they come up, I try to buy them when I have the available funds and I can scoop them up. I think it's a good thing to add to the position. But you look at that, you look at the cultural relevance of the box itself. Who's in the set? What rookies are in the set? What was happening at the time, I think, is a big thing. If you try to look at some other boxes in like sealed product in other sports, you look at like 1986-87 Flair basketball, which has the Michael Jordan rookie and a lot of rookies of other NBA stars. Those boxes go for about $120,000 to $130,000 when they're authenticated by the proper parties and they're sealed, and they check all the boxes that they're legit. You go to something like Wayne Gretzky's rookie year, 79-80 tops. I think a sealed box of that's about $30,000, give or take. You go to 1981 tops football with the Montana rookie. Well, that's pretty reasonable. I think you get those for about $2,500 or $3,000. But with something like that, you're talking like a 700 card set. And that set, the Montana, is like probably the only really desirable card that people know about. Thinking about the values of sealed boxes, I don't think it's one thing. I think it's scarcity, price point, who's in that sealed box that makes that set or box relevant. In UFC, it makes it a little bit different too, because almost everybody from 2009, unless they're involved in this sport as a commentator or a trainer or some other way, like they're not in the limelight anymore. And the pool of UFC fans back in 2009 that are still around now, and like the pool of fans that watch the sport, I think there's a bigger disconnect between that and people who collect the cards versus other sports. Like the percentage of people that watch UFC and collect the cards, I think there's room to grow there, which I'm hoping happens as we move forward. But you think about that too, like who really gives a shit about this stuff? Like why do we care about UFC sealed product? And the way I look at it is, if you believe that combat sports are part of our history as a country, and even part of history of mankind as humans, is like kind of a core part of how we survived and what we're made of, like that survival instinct, hand-to-hand combat, watching it, the enjoyment of seeing it. You can make the argument that it's grotesque violence, it has no place in a civilized society, but you can't argue that there's a huge group of individuals, including myself, that love it as a sport for the skill, the history, the opportunity for anybody from any background, from anywhere in the world, that can participate in this sport and be successful. I think it's beautiful. I think the sport is beautiful. I think the stories behind it are beautiful. And I think that's another part of these SEAL boxes as well, the stories behind the fighters. And I think UFC does a pretty good job of that, but that can grow as far as social media as well. And I think you could build that also. Like individuals like myself or anybody that's in the UFC, when they do research on these SEAL boxes, like retelling the story for the current generation of why this box is special and what fights are highlighted in those boxes and why these fighters mattered before, the 2025 version of UFC. I think we're responsible for telling the story and carrying that forward, especially if you believe in the product and you love the sport and you love the collecting aspect of this. But I'm still very bullish for UFC. The one thing that kind of caught me off guard was I read a YouTube comment on another UFC analyst video. I forget who it was. Probably should have remembered the name. But it talked about how, in their opinion, how there's a general feeling of dilution of the MMA product now versus 2009. That because of the pay scale issues, that the pay isn't high enough to keep the top athletes in the MMA. They're focusing more on the female side of the sport. That I guess the opinion now is that the top female MMA fighters are not as culturally relevant. Maybe the pool isn't as deep. The talent isn't at where it used to be back in the day. I don't know enough about that to know if that's true or not. I'm curious what your thoughts are in the comments. The male MMA pool, I think, is amazing, dynamic. I think taking advantage of social media to promote the fighters and get their stories out there. Because at the end of the day, like, all this stuff is driven by stories, human connection, and making people care. So I don't know if that's a point of hesitation, that there's a perspective that maybe the MMA talent pool is being diluted. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know enough about the sport at that level that may give an intelligent opinion. But I do know more people online are as excited about UFC than ever. You could possibly make the argument that maybe there's no female MMA star that is cultural in the sense of, like, let's say, Ronda Rousey, which is tough to repeat what happened with that phenomenon. But I don't know if you have parents and fathers and mothers taking young daughters and young kids to see Ronda Rousey at fights, or watching her fight because she was such a force and she brought people together and gave inspiration to a lot of people. I don't know if we have that in the female MMA circuit right now. Not at that level. I'm not saying we don't have better fighters or it's not more talented, maybe in the top tier. But do we have someone that can impact the sport at a level to get little girls to want to see them and be inspired and be part of the culture and part of the movement and enjoy UFC? I don't know if that's in women's MMA nowadays. I don't think so. And maybe that's kind of what they were commenting on. But anyway, to circle back to the sealed wax product, I think we're in a good spot. Some interesting teasers for the 2026 product to come out. But I'm still going to try to accumulate at discount prices. Again, I wish I could have bought more during Black Friday. There was just nothing that was a screaming hot deal. I'm still looking at the website to see if anything pops up. But yeah, I mean, why we care about this stuff is because it made an impact on our lives. I mean, that's why I love UFC and the UFC Steel product. Is I watched it when I was younger. I stopped watching it. And then now I'm starting to get back into it, and I'm trying to absorb as much information as possible to try to get caught up to speed and have at least an amateur's level understanding of the MMA fights and the UFC and what it is moving forward and why people like certain fighters. And then to try to take my collectible brain and my investing brain and connect that and see where I can make sense of it and what products to focus on. But I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work out. I mean, I'm trying to give myself some time to I mean, I said like July, I think July 2026 with the White House event, and then that after, so through December of 2026. So about a 14 month experiment from today to see where we end up. It's gonna be fun to try it out. But just want to get a video up. Again, please like, subscribe, comment below. It helps out the algorithm. It's about 35 degrees here in South Carolina, visiting my parents. And I'm going to go back inside and watch some hockey with my dad, watching the Rangers versus the Bruins. And hope everyone had an amazing Thanksgiving. And I'll talk to you again soon.